Treat me like a hog.
Welcome to episode 3 of the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about gameplay versus story. Mike's got something important to say to our U.S. viewers.
Happy Independence Day. I love the movie.
I did too.
It's a good movie.
They're making an Independence Day 2 and 3.
I don't know, man.
Yep, Goldblum and Bill Pullman.
You know, he just did White House Down.
And it bombed.
Yeah.
Let's start by saying, what is this we're seeing here? Last of Us versus BioShock. What the hell is that?
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful thumbnail. I want to get wet with you.
Okay.
And I think what this podcast really is about is, I'll give you a perfect example, is Uncharted. I'll give you, sorry, my throat is a little sore.
What's wrong? Dick sucking?
Little suck. But Uncharted is a perfect example where, you know, the story is amazing and you want to know what's going to happen next. But sometimes the gameplay doesn't live up to the story.
True.
Like, you know, a lot of time, and it happens in The Last of Us too, where, you know, you encounter someone and you end up hitting triangle. And we have to analyze this and ask ourselves, is this really gameplay? Is this what it's come to? Like these quick time events? Like, I don't get me
I'll
wrong.
bring something up right now. Heavy Rain.
Well, Heavy Rain, don't get me wrong either. I love Uncharted and I love Heavy Rain, but is it the story? Is that the reason why we're playing? Or is it the gameplay? Is it both? Because sometimes I feel like it's not both.
Yes.
I think, and the reason why we have The Last of Us and BioShock Infinite up there is that I believe, I don't know about you, but I believe The Last of Us merges the two well together, and so does BioShock Infinite. I could argue, though, that in The Last of Us, sometimes, I understand the pacing's supposed to be like that, but sometimes you're just like, there's nothing happening.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And you're just looking at the scenery.
Yeah.
But then that's something could be said about the atmosphere.
Totally. And you were saying BioShock Infinite gameplay is boring.
It can be boring. It can be very repetitive. Some people look at it and go, this is the boringest game ever. It's like, I played BioShock. I'm just doing the same shit I always did.
And some people play it and they think this is the best game ever made.
So I think we need to go to the history of gaming like we always do and talk about just some games that we grew up and thought the gameplay was better than, you know, vice versa, what we're talking about. So I think for you, The Dig...
How did you know?
The Dig is obviously one that...
How did you know?
Captured your heart before and then the gameplay was a secondary thing.
Well, yeah, story's amazing, and it's a point-and-click adventure, and I think for that genre...
Hey, I know you.
For that genre, point-and-click adventures, I think the story has to be amazing, because let's face it, the gameplay is not much to be desired. It's literally point-and-click. I mean, there is some puzzles to solve.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
The Walking Dead. Maybe I'll. You know, this is what we'll do. I'll leave. You just say what I'm going to say, and then I come back in the half.
And you go, thank you.
Yeah, and then I'll say what you're going to say in the next half hour.
No one knows what I'll say.
But yeah, The Walking Dead's a perfect example.
That's good. Extra skin on my body.
And 400 Days DLC is excellent. And,
hey, shush. We're gonna review it.
Right. But yeah. So back to my point. The Walking Dead is awesome because of the story, right? It's not necessarily the gameplay. Like, if you think about it, the controls are kind of crappy.
Can I tell you a little secret?
Yeah.
I like the Walking Dead comic. I've never read them. I've skimmed them and I've read a little bit, but I can never officially say I've read a whole issue of it. I like it, but I'm not a huge comic book fan.
You started that sentence with "I like the Walking Dead comic."
Yeah, but it doesn't.
And then you said,
doesn't necessarily.
And I said I didn't read it.
No,
and I don't like comics.
Yeah.
So I'm just pointing the obvious out. What are you talking about?
My point is here. No, I like it from a distance.
What?
I don't like comic books.
Okay, but why even bother bringing it up?
The reason I brought that up was, in terms of gameplay versus story, I think the reason that the point-and-click Walking Dead game did so well is, yes, it was made very, very well, but not just that. I think that the show, the actual television show, is very overrated. And I think a lot of people,
I agree with that.
I think a lot of people watch the show because it's the only show that they got for zombies, right? Let me finish. And when this game came out, they go, wait a minute, this isn't really it's a video game, but no, it's The Walking Dead like I want The Walking Dead. And I can interact with it. Holy shit, this is amazing. And I think that's why it did so well. Not just because it's it's so well made. I just also think it has to do with other media. Because look at it in this case, Watchmen.
Look at my dick.
Yeah, look at my dick.
He's looking, folks.
The Watchmen graphic novel, you'll never beat it. The movie is amazing in its own right, but you can't ever look at them together and go, which one's better? Right. You can't do that. But The Walking Dead show versus the game or the comic book, it's just the comic book goes with the game better than it does with the show.
Isn't it funny, though, that both are taking advantage of absence?
Yeah.
Where the TV show, there's no zombie TV show, so they do the Walking Dead TV show, and it's amazing. It's a big hit.
Yep.
And there's so many zombie video games, but there's no click and point adventure games anymore. So they made a click and point The Walking Dead.
Very smart. So I just think that when I was growing up, you had the dig. You'd explained why the dig was so important to you.
I mean, and I played Myst before that.
But I could tell you something. When we played Tribes for the first time, we didn't give a shit what the hell the story was. We loved it.
That was gameplay.
Yeah.
Gameplay overtook the story. Totally.
Yes, they didn't need to be a story.
No.
Okay.
But what do you prefer? And what do you guys prefer? Comment below. Do you guys prefer just pure 100% amazing gameplay, pure 100% amazing story, or
it's difficult?
Or do you like both? Because I like both. I need both.
Okay, but look at this. You got a game like Super Mario Brothers 3 comes out.
Gameplay.
Yeah, you go ape shit over it. You get home. It's got a small story to it, but the gameplay obviously is what sets it apart from everything else at that moment in gaming. But looking back at it, don't you think that story is so subtle, but it was there, and it's also part of the memory of that game. It's like about saving the princess. It's simple. She always gets trapped, and then Bowser comes, blah, blah, blah.
Maybe in the first one it was kind of special, but not the third one, story-wise. I mean, I just remember the gameplay. I remember becoming the raccoon tail and flying away. That's what I remember.
And that was about it.
Well, yeah, and the cool map and everything like that. But
well, okay, what about Perfect Dark?
Perfect Dark? It was trying to be both, but it was more gameplay for me.
Definitely, because it copied something that was done very well in the past, which was GoldenEye.
I think the early 8-bit games and stuff was all gameplay. And then as we move on in gaming history,
I got a question for you then.
The stories got more interesting.
Do you remember one 8-bit game that took it to the next step? Any of them?
Well, Zelda.
Well, Link to the Past 16-bit on Super Nintendo. I think that was one of them that really took it to the next step. But do you ever remember playing something and going, wow, the story's amazing, but it's not just the gameplay?
Not really.
I don't think that I just Link to the Past for me.
I think it happened on the PC years later. Right?
Definitely. So moving on into we start to get to PlayStation 1. And we start to get to all of a sudden Mario's in a 3D world.
PlayStation 1, that was Resident Evil. Because the story was fun to watch and the gameplay was fun to play.
Yeah, because that's when they started to sort of, let's talk about this for a second.
There's cutscenes.
Well, yeah, exactly. I was going to say PC probably did this first.
Yeah, totally.
But I don't even want to bring PC in this. I just want to talk about just console gaming. PC was, to me is a different beast in its own right. So when you had a home console and you didn't have to spend $900 back in the day, to be honest, I used to spend $3,000 on a PC back in the day. I don't know how much yours was, but I'm sure your mother was like, David, let's get the expensive one.
I don't know how much it costs. I had an IBM Aptiva 486.
It must have been a few grand.
Later on, I don't know.
Imagine that. It must have been. So moving on to, you get this disc, you pop it in, and all of a sudden you get these movies with your gameplay. And I remember thinking well, first of all, I remember seeing kind of movies on 16-bit cartridges. Remember they used to do really shitty,
the one that's really cool that was awesome was The Beast Within, a Gabriel Knight story, part 2.
Jesus Christ, what?
That whole thing, that's another click-and-point adventure, but that whole thing is all live-action footage, but the video is compressed so much that the pixels look like Lego. Not Eggo, like Lego.
I'd like an Eggo right now with you on it.
Well, it's past the syrup.
I like how you kind of line for everything.
What?
You got a line.
Yeah, that's true.
What happens if you don't deliver the line? You die.
I leave. I leave. But the thing that's
so you win no matter what.
The thing that's funny is that they hired these bad actors, but the story was so interesting. The Beast Within is about werewolves, right?
Yeah.
And Gabriel Knight is trying to solve this crime.
You know
these
what's
murders.
crazy? I do remember you playing this.
Well,
thing.
you'll remember the cover because the cover's very famous. It's a guy like a ghost, kind of like popping out of a blanket, like that. You see the vampire teeth, but they're werewolves, not vampires. But you see vampire teeth.
But what did you think when you started playing like PlayStation 1?
And I saw those live action.
Yeah, like in the beginning
actors.
of Resident Evil, they go into the mansion. And you're just like, holy fuck, this is a television show all of a sudden, or a movie.
Yeah.
Did you like that initially, or were you like, just get me to the gameplay?
I loved it. I loved, I forget, I think it was Rebel Alliance 2 did that.
Oh, yeah.
Warhawk, did it have live action?
It might have.
The first Warhawk?
I don't remember. It's so long ago.
But there was definitely games on the PS1 that had live action QuickTime.
Well, Tony Hawk. I remember Tony Hawk would have those skater videos.
Right.
And you could unlock them.
It was on CD-ROM and it was compressed to shit. It was like an MPEG 2 320 by 240.
Can you remember a moment where you started to realize that gaming was becoming film and kind of vice versa?
Well, I hate to always go back to it, but it really is The Dig for me.
Well, because that was Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, I mean, The Dig, Full Throttle, The Beast Within, Circle of Blood,
Jesus,
Myst.
No wonder how you got fucked up. The Blair Witch game.
Yeah, the Blair Witch game.
Yeah.
There was a shitty X-Files game, point-and-click adventure.
That wasn't that shitty.
But there's a lot of...
You hurt me.
There's a lot of good point-and-click adventure games that made me think, like, wow, this is... it basically was our Heavy Rain. It's...
yeah, back in the day it was, I guess.
It's what Heavy Rain is now.
Moving into PlayStation 2, when it really started to be clear that they wanted to move the camera in a video game like a film, and they wanted to tell the story like a film, was there anything like...
And we kind of skipped over Final Fantasy VII for PlayStation.
Okay, that was a huge
It had a lot of CGI cutscenes, because there was the live-action cutscenes and the CGI cutscenes, and we were kind of happy with both. I was, anyways.
Well, those were like state-of-the-art cutscenes.
Yeah.
And you know what's amazing now? You could look at the cutscenes in Final Fantasy VII. Those cutscenes are as good as PlayStation, say, 2 looking games.
Yeah, and if you look at magazines that were talking about Final Fantasy VII before it came out, it was mind-blowing. Like, they would print out a full spread of screenshots of, like, this mysterious mirror ship.
This, not to go off topic here, but just a little side story because you brought it up. Explain to the kids that when there's no internet, how do you learn about games? How did we know?
Magazines, mainly. It was a lot of magazines and word of mouth, but PC gaming, Nintendo Power.
That's actually how we kind of met.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kissing.
Kissing in the studio.
Where?
We're kissing in the studio, the school studio.
Yeah.
Making different types of vids. Yeah. I want to get wet with you.
Do you ever remember going to the grocery store and asking your mother for one of the magazines because it was video game related?
All the time.
And she goes, no.
All the time.
She goes, David, he wants another one.
I think I saved up and I got a subscription. No, I did, for Nintendo Power, but they kept coming, and I started not wanting them anymore because the internet started popping up.
Oh, so Nintendo Power died about...
That was when I was a kid.
15 years ago.
I was a kid. I was getting sick of them.
Wow. So moving back into what we're talking about here, I think that for me, the first game that I really love the gameplay and the story has to be Link to the Past, because that game literally did everything that you would ever want a Zelda game to do. Not only that, like the art, the whole thing is Zelda an RPG. I don't know if you agree if it is or not, but I still think it is, because in that game there was...
Sorry, what's this other argument?
Well, there's a huge argument, people saying Zelda isn't. Well, it's a whole argument. I don't even want to get into that. Okay. But
what are the other sites listed as? Like the official gaming sites?
I don't know.
Action RPG?
Something like that. I don't know. I don't know exactly what people are arguing about, but I did see Johnny Millennium talk about it on Happy Console Gamer.
What does he think?
I don't remember what he thinks.
He didn't get into it.
I don't know. He's
safe, eh? He plays it safe.
Yeah, he's too intense for me. He's intense.
Oh.
So...
caffeine will do that to you.
That's what they call that now?
Yeah.
So, getting back to Link to the Past, I don't know if you experienced it. Did you have a Super Nintendo?
No. I had NES. I had NES. I had NES then Sega Genesis. I didn't have a Super Nintendo.
Oh, so you skipped the Super Nintendo.
My friend down the street had a Super Nintendo.
Did you play Link to the Past?
Yes.
So it must have been mind-blowing.
I never got to beat it, though, because I never owned it.
Jesus Christ. That was the first game I beat at, like, you would call 100%. That was 100%. I did everything that could ever be done in that game. And what kept me playing the game was the story. Because all of a sudden it switched to the same map, but all of a sudden it's like the underworld, the dark world. And it's the same map, but everything's like decayed or evil. And I thought at the time, like, that was just a brilliant idea in gaming. It was just like, take the game, flip it on its head, all of a sudden you got a whole different version of it. And that, to me, that was the first game. So for you, it was the Dig. That, obviously, for me, was Link to the Past.
A lot of click and point adventure games that I looked
So, was there anything like... I'm trying to think, like, Heavy Rain was kind of the changing point.
For this
generation, where people were confused on, was it a game or was it a movie?
Right.
What the hell was it?
Because it's been so long since there's been the point and click adventure games. And I'm sure they were confused when The Walking Dead came out. And they're like, what? This is a game? Like, okay, cool, I like it, but is this really a game? I forgot. Yeah, and then what was the other game I was going to talk about? Damn, you know when you lose something? God damn it, Alzheimer's.
I lost my love for you.
Oh.
You got nothing?
No, I had it.
Should we wait?
No, keep going, I'll come back.
So, I guess we should talk about this generation. We're talking about Heavy Rain and how people were confused on what the hell that was, and I personally played it, and it's enjoyable, but is that the platform for it? Like, where else would it go?
Oh, I know what I was going to bring up.
It feels like Heavy Rain would be great on an iPad. Is it great on a console? That's my question.
I think it was great on a console.
It was great on the console because the console had to be powerful enough to run it. But what I'm saying here is, could there ever be a device? Wait a second. There is a device. Why aren't point-and-click games like just blowing up all over the iPad? You think they are slowly?
Well, that's what they are, but they're not like point-and-click adventure. There's a small difference. Like there's click games. You can say there's click games like The Room and all that, and pretty much every.
And The Room is good, but it's still limited. It's still just a little.
It's all and there's not much story.
Yeah,
it just tries to be spooky. And another game that took it further a year ago was a little indie game called Dear Esther, which there is no gameplay. I mean, it is all story. I mean, you push forward on the keyboard, you push the W key to go forward, and you look around with the mouse, but that's it. Like, you pick up something, you read something, but that game, if you want to call it that, is completely story driven, even more so than Heavy Rain.
Well, you know what that game reminded me of? Myst. And I think we skipped over this because...
Well, at least with Myst, though, there is solving puzzles. There's that, and gameplay, and memorization. With Dear Esther, there's nothing. There's none of that.
Yeah, because it's atmosphere-based, right?
It's just all atmosphere.
So I got to ask you about Myst, because this is an important one to bring up.
And Riven?
Do you...
Myst 3
Do you
Exile?
remember, like, experiencing that for the first time?
Oh, yeah.
And what the hell, like, explain what happened. Somebody was like, hey...
That was mind-blowing, too, because, it was so trendy. Because everyone loved it. Not just, like, gamers. Like, people who
like
never
adults,
gamed. It was the Nintendo Wii of its time. Like, I remember Gillian Anderson in an interview.
Said Myst.
So, like, my favorite game's Myst. Like, and everyone's like, yep. They totally understand. Like, yeah, that's my favorite game.
Do you think that was, like, the first game to really blow the freaking lid off that type of genre?
Yeah, totally. It totally was. And then there's so many bad games after it.
Well, I gotta ask you, do you remember anything about, like, where you played it or how it came into your hands, or were you at school?
I played it on the IBM Aptiva 486.
So do you remember going to, like, Electronic Boutique at the time? A lot of people don't realize EB Games stands for Electronic Boutique.
I don't think I got it from Electronic Boutique. I think I got it from a Microplay.
Can I just say something? Electronic Boutique.
Yeah?
That's nothing against gays, but that's a gay name.
It kind of is, yeah.
It is, right? Thank God
they changed. Yeah, boutique is like, when I hear the word boutique, I think like
a boutique,
a beauty salon.
Yeah. Whoever thought of that,
it's clear to me why they changed EB Games.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah.
So you went to EB.
I went to Microplay to pick it up.
You bought it outright? You knew?
Yeah, I knew. Well, yeah, because by then I think on the box it said like over 7 million sold.
So you were like,
so that was a selling point.
You just got to it at that point.
Yeah, and everyone, it was popular, so I knew it was good. It was a shoo-in, and I remember seeing the first video that played in the game. It's like a little square and a book. I'm like, that's a cool idea what they did there.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. We grew up in Barrie, and I think that I'd never had a PC growing up. I only had a Mac, and it was on Mac. So our friend Ionis.
Yeah, that's another cool thing about it. It was on both.
Yeah, and everybody got to play it at the same time.
Yeah.
So I remember Ionis's or Ionis, however the hell you want to say this fucking idiot's name. He, you like that? You like him. If he's listening, which there's no way in hell because he's probably coked out in a basement somewhere. I'm making that up, by the way. He doesn't do any drugs.
If he's listening, text us right now.
Yeah. So, him and I used to play. I know what's
coming up.
Yeah, we had Macs, right?
And this is the Droid?
Yes, okay. We had Macs, and all we could do is go to the Mac section. So, yes, I know everyone right now is laughing at us.
What games were in the Mac section?
You're going to laugh. So, Unreal came out. It could barely run. Are you ready for this?
That's how I met you.
Yeah, it could run in a window on my Performa 6400 Mac, and on the screen it was about the size of a credit card. That's the only way it could run.
I remember you said before it came out, you kept on saying Unreal is, and you did this thing that when you don't have your words.
Yeah.
Unreal is, it's unreal. And you did that laugh. You go, it's unreal. It's Unreal is, and then you try it again. You're like, Unreal is, it's unreal. And then you played it, and I knew you had it. Like, and then the next day I go, so what do you think? And you're like, it's okay. And I knew something was wrong. And then I found out that you're playing it like on a credit card size screen, and it's all choppy, and it looks like shit.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
So,
but you're in denial for a day or two.
Yeah.
You're like, well, it's Unreal, but it's not good.
It sucked.
But if you had it would have been bloody amazing. It would have been amazing.
So I remember we took it back and we were looking at the games, and he's like, "Just take anything." And I literally picked up a game called.
It's like, I'll take your virginity, boy.
I took a game called Droid Works.
Oh God.
And it's literally a game where you build droids and do mathematical equations.
Made by LucasArts.
Yeah, and IG-88 basically fucking kills you at the end no matter what. Can't beat the game. Iona stayed up one night until about 8 a.m. trying to kill IG-88.
Is that a fact? You can't beat the game?
I've never heard of anyone that has.
We should look that up.
I don't know, but if he's listening right now, he's probably breaking something because, long story short, I don't even know where that was going there. I don't even know where that was going, but
the story?
Yeah, it was just the idea of just
droids.
No, it was just like PC games.
Yeah.
Versus console back then.
Well, that's why you want to take it out of the equation.
Yeah, because it was like.
But you don't care about my background. You just don't care.
No.
Okay.
Well, what? Okay, name another game. Another game.
With PC game?
Yeah, with amazing gameplay, but maybe the videos and the story was better.
Half-Life, the first Half-Life, because
yes.
Well,
that's a given.
Okay, but it was amazing because
don't get me wrong. I'm not saying PC is shit.
I know.
It sounds like
you just didn't experience it. You had
because I had a fucking Mac. If I had that PC, I think I'd go apeshit. I'd play everything ever.
So around the time Tribes came out, Half-Life also came out, and that was New World because the
whole New World.
Yeah, there was no the loading happened so quickly between levels, right? It happened like the screen just froze.
What are we talking about?
Half-Life.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that.
And
wait a second. I remember you coming to school.
Yeah.
And you talked about the fact that there was no loading for hours.
Well, it's amazing. I mean, there's loading, but it's like pretty seamless.
Yeah.
And the fact that the protagonist doesn't talk and everyone just talks to you and the mouths move and they're pretty in sync to the voices.
Yep.
It was really cool. And I was blown away by it.
But that game was so ahead of its time.
So the gameplay was amazing. It's a fun first-person shooter. Everyone loves first-person shooters.
But...
And it was a platformer and puzzles and it made you think, and the story was intriguing.
Well, you loved the story because it was sci-fi, it was aliens, it was darkness, it was conspiracy theory.
And then the second one is history. It was even better in every department. But that one changed a lot of stuff. Like, it was no longer like Quake 2, first-person shooter with a shitty story. It's like, whoa, you can have both. You can have an awesome first-person shooter and an awesome story. It proved it. In my opinion, it really blew id Software out of the water. After Half-Life, id Software went...
Yeah, I mean, look at Rage.
Well, yeah, they couldn't do it. They could always make a technical, stunning-looking game with... sometimes good gameplay.
Like they kept coming out with Doom.
Right, but they can't do a story.
No.
id Software could never do a story, and that's the problem. And that's why you see the quality just slowly dying. Like, they can't get away with not having a good story anymore like they could back in the day.
See, the thing is with Rage, if that had a decent story like Mad Max...
Yeah, which is coming out.
Yeah, Mad Max itself, which is what Rage should have been.
Yeah. But that, like... Looking back, like, that's what really Rage is missing. It was a story. It had the graphics. It looked pretty good.
Well, it's arguably the best looking game at the time.
But that just shows like it really doesn't matter.
So moving on to let's try to name some other games that we were kind of impressed with both sides.
Well, at first I thought...
Well, I got one for you. It's a little game called GTA 4.
Okay.
Or you could argue GTA 3 was really the first one on PlayStation 2. Let me tell a story about this. I worked at... Well, actually, no, I didn't work at EB Games at the time. I got hired during the release of that game. And that game was so mind-blowingly epic. Like, you would go into the store and play it on the demo unit. And I remember we eventually had to kick people out of the store. Like, it came down to, like, hey, man, you can't just sit here and play for 8 hours. And there was people playing for 8 hours and, like, almost beating the game in the shift. So when I remember that brought back memories of just Mario 64 at the same thing, like at a demo unit. And I remember playing it for, like, 4 or 5 hours and having somebody at Toys R Us being like, where's your mother?
Get the fuck out of here, kid.
Get out of the suck my dick in the back room.
You can stay 5 more minutes if you blow me. That's him with a cigarette, kid. But I remember the first time I heard about Grand Theft Auto 3. It was my little brother. He goes, Mike! He's all excited. He's like, remember Grand Theft Auto? I'm like, yeah, the little PC game, the 2D thing. And he's like, it's 3D now! And I'm like, what?
And he lost it?
I lost it. I couldn't picture it. I was like, what? And I go, we got to go and check this out. So we biked down the street, and our friend had it on the PlayStation 1, and we played it, and we're like, what the hell?
PlayStation 2.
PlayStation 1.
No.
Oh, is it PlayStation 2?
It's PlayStation 2.
Oh, you're right. It's PlayStation 2.
So you go over, you walk in.
Yeah, and I was like, holy shit. Goddamn amazing. I couldn't believe, because what I couldn't believe is, again, because there's like, really the internet wasn't blowing up then, and I followed gaming, and I had the magazines.
And you had no idea.
I never heard of this Grand Theft Auto.
So all of a sudden,
came out of nowhere.
So you just sit down, and what happens? He hands you the controller?
No, I watched my friend play. I couldn't play until a while, because of course he just got the game, so I can't take over.
So, I mean, I remember that game being just like... It was, for me, was gameplay. I was hooked on the gameplay. I didn't even care what the hell the story was, because...
The story, but I gotta give the story credit, because they hired, like, real actors.
It was amazing, and it just got better as it went. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, I never, like, picked up the game and go, oh, I wonder what the story is in this game. I literally drove around for 20 hours.
I think, like, 75% of gamers do that with the Grand Theft Auto games.
Yeah, and, like... Okay, I gotta ask you this now. Now that it's so far advanced, look at how far that series has come. Grand Theft Auto 5, I bet you can't wait to play that. Like, I bet you it's just going to be nuts.
To be honest, I can't wait for the story either, because, and did you hear you could switch between the three characters at any time?
I know. Amazing.
So you could switch to the redneck at, like, 3 a.m. and he could be, like, fucking somebody. And, that's...
Like, you're fucking somebody and you switch?
Yeah.
Like, in real life?
No, well, yeah, but... You someone could be fucking me. But the point is that you can switch between 3 characters.
Yeah, I know. That's amazing.
That's awesome. But to have, it's going to be really cool to see storytelling told that way. Like, how are they going to predict, like...
It's going to be Magnolia.
Yeah, obviously, when you switch to the player, they're going to make it so something interesting is going to be happening.
Yeah.
Right? So that's really cool. That's going to be something new that they're going to bring to the table.
So Grand Theft Auto came out. We're at EB Games, mind-blowing. You're at your friend's house, mind-blowing. And I guess that was also the first game for me where I was like, holy shit, gaming can be something else. It doesn't need to be just a linear story and I'm walking up a linear hallway and I get from point A to B and that's it.
Imagine they just call it a game linear, because that's the title of it.
Yeah, actually.
And they promote it so well, we all want it, and then it's completely linear.
Well, wait a second. Do you think we'll ever come back around to linear games? Because it looks like next gen is all about open world, and that is it. Open world, no loading. You're in there. You're immersed. I hate that word, by the way. You're immersed in the game.
There's still linear games.
Well,
there's still linear games.
It's arguably.
Like,
I'm talking of next gen where everything looks like an MMO. Everything.
Right, but we still have, like, you know, The Devil May Cry, which is very linear, but really fun to play and stuff like that.
I know, but I don't know. Next gen just looks a little linear to me. Not linear to me. Sorry.
Right. I mean, I think
okay, well, let's bring up something here important then. Let's just cut right into it. In terms of how linear games have become, or have they become open world, how important is it that in The Last of Us you can go off the path, but it's not a side mission. You can just go exploring. That's very important in a game like that.
Yeah, and I think, but when you look at it, you step back, I think it is a linear game. It's just different levels of linear that we're talking about here. It's not like strictly linear, like A to B.
Well, I'd say Bioshock
you can go off the beaten path and stuff like that, but really, there's only one way to go.
Yes,
because same with Bioshock Infinite.
Yes,
you can go secret rooms, get extra stuff, but
what I'm saying is, the when you play a game, is it necessary they need to be like that, or can they go back to the root where it's like
no, it's not necessary. If it's done well, it's done well, linear or non-linear. It's just like Halo 4.
So I gotta ask you this: if you turn these games into open world concept,
like Halo, for example.
Yes, Halo. Okay. Well. Has Halo really... Halo is not really open world.
No.
Halo is exactly the same as Last of Us.
Yeah, it gives you that feeling like Halo 1 Combat Evolved. You can like go explore and stuff, but really, again, one way to go.
So, I guess my last question about just being linear versus non-linear. Can you think of a game that was extremely linear that you just absolutely loved from A to B? Like, I'm talking
I guess
A to B.
The Uncharted games are pretty linear.
Yeah, I guess they yeah, I mean, that actually brings something up. Playing Tomb Raider versus Uncharted.
Yeah.
Versus how linear Uncharted is versus how sort of open world it felt, at least, like
oh, you mean
Tomb Raider was.
Well, because like the secret caves.
Exactly. Could you imagine The Last of Us, Tomb Raider, Uncharted in an open world setting where you can go anywhere?
Like an MMO setting?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about DayZ.
But the thing is, do those types of games work with this story? Because The Last of Us is designed to go from, you bring Ellie from here, you end up here. And you go on this journey, and they want you to be scripted as it's happening.
Right.
They want you to be able to experience the world, but... Do you think games like this would be ruined if it was just open world because you could go do anything? Would it be harder?
I think it's
well. Sorry, actually, let me rephrase that. Would it be as emotional as these? Because I feel like games like these, the emotions are designed at certain moments. So it's like this happens here, but in an open world game, everyone experiences it differently.
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, what do you like more out of this, and could they do it with these games?
Well, as a gamer, I like to have everything, right? So some games I like to be linear. Some games I like to have a huge MMO. Some games I like to just focus on the story.
So I got a question.
But what you're describing sounds like Destiny. And I think you should really look to World of Warcraft, where you actually do get invested in the character and the story. Now that the next gen's coming out and they're creating these new MMOs, like I can't wait for Blizzard's next MMO. I'm sure there's going to be that stuff you're describing where you can do whatever you want, go off the beaten path, but still have emotional stories within that path.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what you're talking about. And I think the reason why it hasn't been done yet is it's so ambitious. It's so involving so much work, and only companies like Blizzard, who's highly successful, could do games like that now. Or
so
like
it'd be like
Bungie,
basically what we're talking about is The Last of Us, but times the size of 10.
Yeah, like
that would be very hard to develop.
Yeah, like a DayZ game.
See, but I think that's what we're starting to see. I think you've nailed it on the head. That's what Destiny, that's what they want it to be. They want it to be like super, I hate this word, rich content.
Well, make up
story driven.
Something new.
They want it to be gangbusters story-wise. Is that a good one?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. What do you mean you don't think so?
Just say, and how about rich? Why not just say excellent?
How about...
excellent gameplay.
How about they want it to be very...
You don't like immersive?
I hate immersive and rich. I hate those words because we heard them at E3 a million fucking times.
Mm.
And it doesn't mean shit to me until I actually play it myself. Then I can say this is immersive.
Right.
I hate when a developer goes, our game's immersive and rich with content. Then you play it and it's like...
How about like enchanting? But you'll figure out a word. You'll get it.
I almost had one.
You go to the...
Savory. There we go.
Yeah, sure. How about delicious?
Delicious savory.
Delicious gameplay.
Okay, that's what I want.
Addictive gameplay.
So we're talking about like The Last of Us with savory gameplay. So it's already savory, but imagine it times 10.
Yeah.
Do you think in this next generation we'll see games that are pushing the limits on both sides of the fence? So it's open world, but it's also this immersive story, like super immersive.
I mean, I hope so.
Well, you know what comes to mind is State of Decay. Imagine State of Decay had the story of The Last of Us.
Yeah, totally.
It would be amazing.
Totally. I mean, it doesn't do a good job telling the story now. It's just all you read it all and stuff like that. But yeah, the gameplay's there for sure. They just need to up the story and fix the frame rate.
I think they fixed it.
Not on mine.
No.
I was playing it the other night, but I'm sure. I mean, it's coming. I don't think it's on PC yet, but it is coming to PC.
Yeah, it'll be much better probably.
And there's just going to be the sequel. They already announced it. So
with multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about games like DayZ. Yeah, that came out of nowhere. It was huge internet success.
Well, you can just thank the mod community for that.
Well, I think the mod community knows what we want, and that's why they've made it.
Well, because they are us.
They are us. So
they're The Last of Us.
Basically, so a game like this where there is no story, because you kind of are making your own story up.
Mm.
And do you like games like this?
Yeah, I mean,
what's your favorite thing about them? Like,
I think the first one that I experienced was Counter-Strike, which is just a mod of Half-Life with absolutely no story, but they wrote the rules for like first-person shooter deathmatch.
Yeah, like
it's amazing what they did. Like that's a gamer did that, like not a developer. But I'm not saying developers are not gamers, but you know. Not someone who did it for fun.
Did it for the dick and the taste.
They did it for the dick and the taste of it.
So I guess we got like 20 minutes left. We should get into this. So The Last of Us versus BioShock.
Yeah.
What are some pros and cons of both of these games? If we're gonna really debate them.
Well,
like honest debate here. No bullshit, no hype. I have to admit, The Last of Us has a bit of hype, and so does BioShock.
I think that.
And wait, one last thing. Do you think Grand Theft Auto 5 can come on top here and just crush them?
Totally. So yeah, especially with the 3 characters switching back.
It could happen. So
has that been done before in that way?
No, not in those games.
No, I mean in any game. I mean you can switch characters in other games, but not mid-story.
No, it's never been the way that they've explained it. It's never been a Pulp Fiction.
Right.
So it's going
to be. You're the director. You have the choice.
Basically, so
like I wonder if you can play the entire game as one character, and I'm sure you run into the other 2 characters and never play the other 2
and
characters.
Then replay the game as that. Yeah, I think so.
That'd be insane.
Well, I think that's the idea behind the whole game. That's the concept. Like, hey, 3 characters now.
Because they have to do something new.
Exactly. So
it looks gorgeous, but it's not going to be like a huge shocker.
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think there's going to be surprises in there that'll blow our minds, like the ability to go into almost every building, maybe.
Yeah, I'm just talking graphically.
So, Last of Us, pros and cons.
Okay, so here it is. BioShock Infinite, I feel like the action is like non-stop, like awesome. Like in your face, boom, 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 boom. Like it's cheap thrills. Like people who don't want to like people want instant gratification.
Yeah,
I think that's BioShock Infinite for people. For people who are instant gratification.
Yeah.
The Last of Us is not those people. It's people that they
it's
want
a slow burn.
It is totally slow burn, like a Skyrim player. Like you
Yeah.
have to play it out to really appreciate it. You're not going to just pick it up for 5 minutes and instantly be entertained. Right?
All right, so which
you could be in a part of the game where you're exploring for like a fucking shiv, and it could be boring as hell. Not like to the new person.
See, but the thing is, I don't know if I felt limited, like it felt limited or not. It's an amazing game, but there's still things that could have been done to make it even better. I mean, I could say there's certain moments where I'm like, oh, here's the clicker part again. Here we go again.
I think
you know what I mean,
and I think and it's kind of a routine type of thing. But you could say that about BioShock.
But what I gotta say is, do you think in the next gen they could eliminate those things because they could essentially, because of the memory, they could go nuts?
Yeah.
Hey guys, special announcement: my Opa has been in the hospital. And my Oma just messaged me and said, Opa is coming home tomorrow, and I guess that he's fine. They found sort of a black something on his pancreas, and they think it's cancer. So they're gonna have to. They said they can remove it and he'll be fine.
Okay.
But it can't be that serious because he's coming home.
Good.
Unless it's the total opposite, and he's like, "Don't operate, just let it kill me."
Wow. They'll probably have to do more tests. They always have to do more tests.
So apparently he's fine.
Good.
But I don't trust my mother.
Oh, that's your mom?
No, I trust my Oma, but she didn't say anything like what.
Right.
He's fine right now is what they've said.
Oh, that's good.
But, thank you for the support on Twitter. By the way, you can follow us on Twitter.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter.
Jay Hooft at 3KB and Mike Colangelic.
Yeah, Michelangelo.
So, getting back to it, Last of Us versus that, BioShock Infinite, where did either of the games lose you? Did they lose you?
Okay. The thing with
back I'm talking about immersion. I'm sorry, I'm talking about richness and
here. Okay, you said it in the Last of Us review. I was going to say before that message.
Well, the AI is horrible.
The AI is not horrible.
Well,
it's just that BioShock Infinite is a cut above.
Well, yes.
And I think BioShock completely wins in the AI department. Friendly and enemy.
Well,
AI.
I'm talking if you put these two games next to each other, AI. I'm sorry, but Last of Us AI, Ellie, drives me up the fucking wall. Like, there's just things where you see her run into the room with clickers, and somehow she can do it, but if you do it, the clicker will kill you. And it's just like, well, how does she get away with it? And this kind of takes away from the whole myth of the clickers being able to see.
And the whole when you're trying to be quiet and whispering.
And then they're talking.
Yeah, they're talking, and there's dialogue being thrown back and forth.
And you know what else?
That takes you out of it.
You know what?
It's a stupid little thing.
I know. Well, you know what bothered me a lot about the game was the fucking flashlight. You pointed it out to me, and I thought, fuck, you're right.
Oh, the animation, the lack of...
Yeah, everything is amazing, but why is there no animation to turn the light off and on?
I thought that was strange.
Then I also thought, when you turn the flashlight on in a room full of clickers, or just a room full of enemies, how come they never go, what the hell's that light?
I didn't even try to do that, so I don't know. I mean, for the clickers and the undead, it's because they can't see anyways. Right?
Okay, that's explainable, but when there's people in a room standing right next to you going, do you hear that?
I never tried that. I can't say that.
Well, no, I left it on the whole time, and it's casting shadows and stuff.
Yeah, I mean...
And it's just like, I'm nitpicking here, but I mean, it's supposed to be immersive, right? Why... do you think that was a development choice where they said, okay, the flashlight can affect the enemies, but it's getting ridiculous to a point, and it's not even a freaking game you can play?
Maybe it was a difficulty setting issue.
I would love to see a version of this game where the flashlight affects the enemies, because then this game would be apeshit scary. Like, you would be in rooms where you can't see shit.
Alan Wake.
Basically.
BioShock Infinite, in an AI fight, Ellie versus Eleanor, Eleanor would kill her.
Eleanor?
Sorry, Elizabeth. Sorry.
Why are you saying Eleanor? Tell me about that.
Because Ellie. Because I thought Ellie, Eleanor.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Blair Witch.
No.
Or your mother.
Elizabeth. Elizabeth would win in AI.
Isn't your mother Eleanor?
She's Ellie.
Eleanor.
Yeah.
I know her by Eleanor. She says, call me Eleanor. I like the way you move.
Most adults do.
She goes, thanks. I'll send you your socks in the mail. You can't come back here. So getting back to Bioshock Infinite, what's disappointing about the game? Anything? Did you at any what point I asked you earlier? Did any of the games lose you?
Bioshock Infinite was interesting because I felt kind of some sense of regret, and not because of the story about what I'm doing, the action I'm doing, but because what I just experienced was so awesome. I couldn't absorb it all, and I was like, "What's happening?" I was just on a friggin' sky hook, and can I do that again? No, I'm gotta do this thing now. I'm onto this thing. I don't think that's a complaint though. That's like during an interview, people go like, "What's your weakness?" and you go like, "Well, I'm just I don't know when to quit."
Yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah.
So, for me, I have to say, in Bioshock, just how repetitive it became. But I have to admit, as it got further into the game, no spoilers here, you started to realize that this game was also survival horror almost. Not survival horror, but it was a horror game. Like, it got pretty intense at the end there. Like, with some freaky imagery.
Yeah, and resources become an issue, and changing up the vigors.
But, okay, I gotta ask you this in terms of characters now. Booker is amazing character, but he's no Joel.
No.
Joel is a solid character that I believe exists. Either he's dead or alive. He's somewhere out there.
I think that's like a first person, third person thing. It's really hard to pull off a really interesting protagonist
when you don't see him.
When you don't see him.
True.
If we don't break out like of his head.
Do you think they ever said Last of Us should be a first person game?
Maybe, I don't know.
Or do you think Bioshock was ever going to be?
No, I think Bioshock would always be.
It has to be a first person.
To be, but I think Last of Us they figured out early on because that's what they do, right? Uncharted, which brings me to the Uncharted series is I feel like Last of Us said here's the gameplay and the story. And Uncharted, when we first played like Uncharted 2, it had the gameplay and the story, but looking back on it compared to The Last of Us, I feel like Uncharted doesn't have the gameplay there anymore.
No,
why
it's boring.
is that? Is it because Uncharted 3 or is it?
No, I think that Uncharted 3 disappointed us a little bit because the story was it kind of went off in a weird direction at the end there. Mm-hmm. But I also think that The Last of Us is about surviving. Uncharted is about profit. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but I think deep down we want to live and survive as humans.
Like, so you think because The Last of Us has like the resources and everything breaks and you got to keep finding
exactly.
stuff.
It's about
Uncharted's like it's really when you look at it, you hit.
Let's just be honest. Uncharted is Indiana Jones.
Right.
That is all it is. I'm sorry,
and that's what Tomb Raider is too.
Yes, it's just Indiana Jones with a chick. Okay, let's just be honest with this, right? The Last of Us, people can go, well, that's just The Walking Dead. Yeah. But I don't know if I would even agree with that. It's something else. Like, I almost feel like, well, you know what this draws on the most?
You know why it's something else? Is because you're fighting probably humans 60% of the time, as opposed to infected. Infected are like the secondary enemies. The main enemy is humans and yourself.
Yeah, basically. The other thing that made me think,
like weapons,
book learning.
Well, weapons.
What I want to say is this: George Romero is obviously, if you don't know who that is, he's very famous because he wrote and directed Night of the Living Dead, and he started everything zombie wise. Well, debatable, but popular zombie culture is because of Romero, and I talked to him at Fan Expo about like 4 years ago, and obviously anybody that watches like Night of the Living Dead or any of his movies, the zombies are actually considered to be the humans in those stories.
Right.
And in The Last of Us, I feel like they took that. They were like, you know what? The infected are really the humans because the humans in this story are acting like zombies.
Right. And I think what I was going to say is if you take the infected out of that game and replaced it with anything else, like aliens or like werewolves or ghosts, it would still be a great game.
Yeah.
In fact, it doesn't matter that it's infected. It's just
a plot device, to be honest.
Right. It's just a plot device. And I think I said in the review, like, it's not like a zombie thing to me.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
It's not a zombie
It's just humans that are not well.
Right.
It's not zombies, it's humans.
But like the games like Uncharted, it was too much of like, oh, here comes a guy, you hit a triangle, hit circle.
I know, shoot him.
And then, which brings me
to... no, wait a minute, and parkour across this ledge.
Yeah, which brings me to like God of War 3, where it looks stunning, the story is interesting in 3, but the gameplay, really, is it like, what does the gameplay have over all the other hack and slash games that are out there?
You could just call it smooth.
It's, yeah, the frame rate's really smooth, it looks beautiful.
Like, it's just a smooth experience, and that's where development comes in and how much time they spend on it. Like, if you put that game next to, say, Darksiders 2, I would say Darksiders 2 is just as fun, just not as smooth.
Right.
It would be like the cheap version of it.
Right. And
but it doesn't. It still is fun as hell because it's the story in that is awesome. I want to find out with like the horsemen and all that stuff.
But what God of War does better is the scope and scale. Not necessarily gameplay, but just like, wow, I'm on this giant.
So I got to ask you this. So The Last of Us versus BioShock in terms of scale and how epic it is, they both obviously challenged each other in a way.
And they're both lengthy single-player campaigns. I mean, Last of Us has multiplayer. That's awesome, and Infinite does not.
But you know what's amazing? Last of Us, like, I'm not going to give it away, but I'd say 2/3 of the way in, all of a sudden I'm playing Assassin's Creed. It feels like.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed 3, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm playing Assassin's Creed 3 better than Assassin's Creed. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking like, oh, wait a minute. All of a sudden it's actually also Tomb Raider, and it's just as good as Tomb Raider was. And I think for a studio to sit back and go, listen, everything in this game needs to be top notch is a difficult decision because that takes time and money. Mm-hmm. And I do think in development they cut back on certain things. So for instance, they'll say, well, you know, it can't, these buildings cannot look as good as you hoped. Like, because we need to carry on here and push it forward.
Right.
And that's where games like Darksiders, if they had another 2 years of development, it would be like, holy shit, here we go.
And if you go into a lot of houses in Last of Us, you're going to see a lot of repeated textures. Like a lot of the same
there's a lot,
thing.
but...
And did you know that they didn't, and this is what I find amazing about Naughty Dog, is that they never do facial motion capture like in L.A. Noire.
I know.
They animate it later all by themselves, but they get all those emotions when they're telling the story and the characters are fighting or
well, you know what's amazing is because if you look at a Pixar film, the first 10 minutes of Up emotionally is better than anything. Like the first 10 minutes of the movie Up.
But it makes you, because we're going to have more games that are going to be like L.A. Noire.
Yes.
And then there's going to be the games like The Walking Dead that they animate it later, but you still get the emotion across. And it's going to be interesting to see which one's more effective.
See, I think that the better that it becomes more human-like, the more emotion you feel. But is that going to take away from video games?
That's what I mean. Because when you look at that PS4 demo of the funny wizard guy, the old guy.
It's funny.
It's funny, but when you're watching it, you're like, this is creepy. I'm not really interested in this because I'm too creeped out. I can't pay attention.
Also, you have to admit, like, okay, I see a very good-looking rendered person, but, like, in the context, what the fuck is he doing?
Yeah, I'm not paying attention to what he's saying and how he's feeling. So, but in The Walking Dead, the most simple cell shading technique
works.
I can get it.
And you can understand it.
I could see when he's sad and everything.
I think, like, BioShock Infinite, I think what's something funny about it is like it went from obviously underground in the water to the air, and I asked you where's it going next, and you were like space.
Yeah,
and I think
space or underground.
Yeah, I really think it should go into space.
Totally.
So in terms of Last of Us, where should it go from here? There's just surviving.
Not to give anything away, but yeah, it'd be them surviving. So that's why I'm not too excited about the sequel to Last of Us, because I feel like it had a good ending. Of course, it wasn't completely absolute.
Yep.
But I know you're telling me that there's going to be a second
one.
Oh,
for sure. There's no doubt.
I really wish that they just leave it alone and they move on to their next IP. Maybe make Uncharted 4.
Well, I recently heard Nolan North has no idea what Uncharted 4 is. He doesn't even know. So it's either bullshit or he's doing it. I've learned from experience that voice actors will... most of them lie. They'll say, I'm not doing this, and they're literally just came from a recording session.
Yeah.
So
we're not gonna point any fingers.
Yeah. Lies.
Rhymes with defexes.
Rhymes with choke pixes. We got about 5 minutes. We got to do our. I think it's going to become something we always do on the show. It's basically we design a video game in 5 minutes. So, genre. Last time we picked puzzle, so I get to pick this time, and I'm picking an action adventure game.
Okay.
So action adventure. What year is it set in? Go.
The 80s.
So basically, it's Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
No.
Okay. Is it linear or is it open world? So we got an 80s type.
It's hard. I think when these if we're given that choice, I think we're always going to pick open world. But okay, open world.
Okay, you know what? Let's go hard then.
Linear.
It's a linear 80s game.
Right.
And it's an action adventure game.
Right.
What camera view is it?
Third person.
So it's a third person. So we're still in Vice City here, except it's like going down one street.
Yeah.
What makes it unique? Can you think of anything that would make this unique? That's not Vice City now. See how we've painted ourselves into a corner? The last game, Star Maps, is amazing that we came up with.
You mean Chance?
Chance and Star Maps. Chance by Star Maps?
No.
That's what it's called. Is there anything unique?
Geez, maybe you should have started with that option, but
you got anything? I got nothing.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Your character has the ability to transform into anything.
Jesus Christ.
That he can see.
So wait a second, it's a sci-fi film.
But in the 80s.
Okay,
so think of like Back to the Future feeling.
So are we looking at...
So you can look at a person transforming. We can look into a car.
So kind of like... You stole this from The Boy and His Blob. Basically, you just get the jelly beans and turn the blob into whatever you want.
Yeah. Think about like, you know how Watch Dogs is hacking?
Yeah.
You do morphing.
So are you an alien from another planet, maybe?
You're a science experiment.
Gone wrong, escaped.
Gone right. Right.
Okay.
You're part of the military.
Is there anything... Okay, you're part of the military. You're running with this one right now.
Yeah.
Ask me something, and let me add to this.
Okay, what's the story? Good luck.
I think that I would steal from Contact, and I think that we would get some sort of code from space, and it would just show up.
Captured by the military. Yeah. Not for public.
Exactly, and we would have the military would not alert anybody. In fact, it would be like almost Men in Black style. They'd be just like, we found this code, and the government would just give them a grant, and it would be like Project X, and they were just like, we're going to do this. We're going to find out what the hell this is.
Right.
So they do it. They do the science. They figure out it's some sort of thing that somebody just puts into them.
Right. And so how about it like goes wrong a few times, but for some reason it worked for you. Halo.
Yeah. So the military does it. It's a lot like obviously Halo here a little bit. But maybe they do
it's in the 80s, and it's very funny. It's got humor, and it's got, if we had an unlimited budget, it's got all the great music from the 80s.
Okay, so I think that they would just go for it. They would say, hey, we've picked somebody. And I think to make it interesting, it would be a male character, but it would be...
But you can morph into a female.
I know, but it would be originally. I think it'd be funny. It'd be funny if you can morph into anything, but it's not open world, but... What's the purpose of morphing then? Why are you morphing into anything? Do you mean literally anything that you go up to on like a street corner?
Yeah, any object. I think would be some limitations, and I think once you like kind of go to an object that highlights itself, you know what I mean? Like you can't like morph into the entire.
But wait a minute, you morph into say a penny on the street. What the fuck is the point of that?
To fit into a small space.
Okay, but why? Okay, well, why?
Well, you have to come up with a story. I think that the threat is the aliens. Mistakenly gave us this information. Do you know how it's supposed to be funny?
Yeah.
They're sending it to a planet like that's just the alignment was just off. They're trying to send it to a better planet that's very peaceful.
That's hilarious.
And it's like very spiritual. And it's very smart.
Yeah.
The people there, and it misses, and we think it's Earth that's going to get it, but then we find out it's not.
Can there be incredible eyes in this? Just like the tech.
Yeah, they put it on the moon, and that's what you have to do. You have to get up into space. Because now when the aliens find out that we did it, the military rejects you. Like, we don't know anything about this. We don't know anything about him.
So this is a failed game. The last game we did in the last episode, better. So guys, this is this episode. Let us know what you want to see in the next episode. Please share, like, send it out, send it to your mother, your cousin. Thank you for listening. Bye, Michael.
The game is called Project X.
Okay.
In the 80s.
How about Project 80?
Okay.
Okay.
Roman numerals.